if you learn how to practice what you're doing before you walk in a door, you've got to be able to get up every day and say, hey, people don't care about me. All good. However, I have value, so I can let stuff slide off my back. But also people are lucky that I'm calling them because I can solve their problems.
All right. Well, I want to start off with introducing today's guest on the Sales Gravy podcast. He's taken one of the most unconventional and inspiring paths into sales that we have seen on this podcast. Steve is a minister, a pastoral minister, before taking his leap into the world of B2B sales, where he has now thrived. He's now the head of strategy and sales, at the Nine Digital. He's a President's Cabinet winner from his time at Verizon Telecommunications, sweetheart in my world, and the founder of SPP Consulting, where he trains sales teams on the 3 Ds of sales: their own development, their demonstration of skills in customer meetings, and their delivery of revenue on their KPIs for their business. Steve's story is proof that empathy, communication, and servant leadership don't just belong in ministry, they are critical to winning in sales. And on this episode, we dig into what that transition looked like, what surprised him most about his career, and what every second career seller needs to hear before stepping into the game. Steve, thank you so much for being on the Sales Guru podcast.
Yeah, man. Pleasure to be here.
Well, I want to start with, which I'm sure is a story that you are very practiced at telling, but everyone needs to hear, your transfer from ministry into sales. So what are the skills that are transferable from your previous role as a pastor into the role in sales? I think that there are not a lot of people who have given this a lot of thought, but I'm sure there
Yeah.
are.
Yeah. I mean, there's been a lot of people that have really started this second career transition from ministry for a number of reasons. For me, I always thought I was going to be a pastor long term, but I had a family member that got sick, and for us, we had to resign from the church that we were leading just to take care of them. But that kind of put me in this little identity whirlwind. And
Mm.
I'm assuming most people who go through some sort of career transition, whether it's you've gotten laid off from your accounting job, or all of a sudden what you thought was going to be stable is now not, I think there's this sense of your identity is dead, where it's like, this is what I do. And so I had to realize that ministry wasn't just something I did, it's who I was. So what I did ultimately was completely different from that. So I learned how to sell. I was a wholesale coffee guy up here in Portland, Oregon. If the mustache and the haircut doesn't give it away where I live, but I got to learn how to sell by building a wholesale program for a local roaster out here. And then I got picked up by Verizon, like you said, had 6 years with them doing outbound sales as well as managing a technical sales team. And then now working for head of strategy and sales at the Nine. But the skills that are transferable are shocking. I I read a book by Daniel Pink that says to sell is human. And there's just this sense that everybody is in a selling role. Same thing with Chris Voss, like never split the difference. Everybody's in a negotiating role. So I think the skills that transitioned quite well was talking to strangers,
Mm.
because when somebody would walk into a church building on Sunday, I have no idea who the hell you are, so might as well go up and have a conversation and say hello. Um, I think solving problems that aren't really your responsibility, because people call the pastor when the shit hits the fan. They don't call him when things are awesome and things are great. So you get comfortable in uncomfortable situations,
Mm.
whether you're, um, doing a funeral for a baby who died randomly, or you're counseling a couple who wants to divorce each other because of addiction that was found out, or parents who are like, my kid's addicted to drugs, what do I do? All of that transitioned because ultimately we're dealing with people. I don't care what job you have, even if you're an accountant on a spreadsheet, knocking out an Excel file, you got somebody on the other side, severance style. You have to talk to them. You have to be able to interact. So I think those skill sets are communication, vision casting, because ultimately sales professionals have KPIs they have to hit, and they have to start foreseeing into the future. So having the ability to tell yourself that the work that I do today is going to affect tomorrow, That's like vision casting in a church. Um, Public speaking, goodness gracious, that I mean, if you speak every single Sunday and prepare a message that half the people are just gonna critique the hell out of you on, and the other half are like, "I don't yeah, okay, you do that, that's totally fine." But the other half would say, "Hey, I don't even believe the thing you're telling me about." So, there's a level of skill that you have to have in communication from a pastoral standpoint because you're trying to tell the people who are coming that you think there's a better life this way. And in sales, you're calling a customer, you're talking to a prospect, and you're saying, "Hey, I think there's a better life this way." So for me, I was forced into that transition. And I couldn't be more thankful for it, man. It's revealed so much in me of that who I am isn't changing based upon the profession that I.
I think that you've hit on some really important aspects of those skill sets, which is, the Daniel Pink book, To Sell is Human, and what you were approaching in your explanation is that there's a part of that work that required you to really connect with the people in front of you. I mean, sincerely,
Yes.
authentically, because you mentioned the critique of the room that's in front of you. If you're at a funeral and you are not doing an authentic job, I mean, those people are they have a lot of expectations of a pastor. And what you're saying is that you had to walk the line of teaching and shepherding, but also helping people understand that you're in it with them. And I want to know how that shaped your relationship building strategy in a business sense from a pastoral
Yeah.
sense, because you went from something that is reverent. I would say more reverent than sales. I'm just going to put
Yeah.
that one out there to sales, which is which is business. I mean, you're making decisions, and it can impact people's lives in a big way, but it's not the same. And your approach must have had some challenges along the way until you kind of perfected it from what you had to what you have now.
Yeah. There may be some religious people who listen to this who may not like what I say, but I don't mind pissing anybody off. There's this sense that in a faith-based thing, you sell Jesus. Sorry. Like that's the relationship you're selling. So sales is the thing across the board, but I believe that sales professionals aren't patient enough in the relationship building process. For example, if you start a relationship with someone in a nonprofit space, there may be an end goal in mind, but that takes time. Change takes time. And I believe nowadays in the world of email blasts and LinkedIn pitch slapping and all these other quick hits and quick wins, the Instagram,
Mm,
entrepreneurs who biohack their day and get three things done times like you. It's like that's the culture in which we live. However, what you have to do is you have to take it slow. It's like any friendship, right?
mm,
Like if you and I grab a beer, it's not like we're going to get super deep on my issues or your issues. We're just going to start a relationship.
right.
That's the same thing as you build relationships in sales. Are you pulling a door, walking into an office, meeting the receptionist, or asking to meet with the marketing manager or the sales manager or the operations manager, whoever you're going after, but realizing they don't give two shits why you're there. So at the end of the day, you've got to know that you are working towards building authentic relationships, and that takes time. If somebody would walk into my church, I would recognize that, hey, that's probably a major step for them. Maybe they think the building's going to burn down or whatever everybody says, right? So that's a very uncomfortable situation for them. So the more that I can make my prospecting comfortable for the other person, the more success I'm going to have. Now, the success will be, I don't want to talk to you, boom. But that's a maybe for later. Because what if they're having a bad day? What if, something happened at home? There's all these things that I think come into my perspective in prospecting. Um, because building relationships takes time, and sales teams need desperately to get off of this short-term win dynamic.
Mm,
The goal is long-term revenue for your company. lifetime value for the end user. Yeah, you can get a quick win to close the quarter, but what if the customer churns 3 months later? It doesn't matter. So
Right.
you have to take a look at relationship building as a slow and steady process, and most people give up too soon. Have you done a multi-touch strategy? Have you called them and then 4 days later sent them a LinkedIn request and then 3 days later sent them a text message and then emailed them and then showed up in person and then repeat that for 2, 3, 4 months? At some point in time, they're going to listen to you, right? It's the story of the persistent widow in the scriptures. If she just keeps praying, at some point in time, God might listen. So take that same perspective. At some point in time, they're either going to say, never call me again, or otherwise, you're going to slowly start building something. And that persistency, Jeb, brings value to them because it's not just like this, hey, I want to sell you something, but I really think I can help you, which is why I keep knocking on your door. You guys always teach in the phone prospecting, right? People's like, "Hey, I'm not interested." I assumed you weren't interested, but that's why I'm calling. I'm trying to tell you that I think I may have something different, but I have value to show you, and you tell me whether or not it's relevant. So I would just say long-winded answer to your short question. The approach needs to be slow and steady.
I couldn't help but go back to my days in the telecom industry, and you'll know this very well. I had I think four reps in my territory that were in the same business, and we're all selling. We had no real territories. We are just selling in the same city, and
Yeah.
over and over and over again, people, you go to parties, you go to a networking event, you go to your own house, and people go, "Oh, I hate XYZ company." We all hate the telecom companies. Everyone has a bad thing to say. And
Of course.
what I observed on, I would prospect with people as a team. I would say, hey, do you want to go out and just go spend the afternoon and prospect together? If you get one, I get one. That we'll have that dynamic. And some people said yes. And what I realized is that when they walked in the door and it was a small business or medium sized business market, they would say, "Hi, I'm blah 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 from this company, and I want to talk to the general manager to talk about our products and services that we have at XYZ Telecom Company." And they did this over and over and over and over and over again. And I
Yeah.
realized that my approaches happened to be different. It wasn't because I was strategic. I just happened to be different. I would walk in, I would say, "Hey, Steve, I've lived in this area for all my life, and I have never walked in this building, and I wanted to know what you do here." And even if it was the receptionist, they would have a conversation with me. And what I learned over time is that the relationships that I built with those conversations, they didn't always end in a sale, and they almost always didn't end in an appointment. And I just started building a book of business where people would call me and say, "Hey, can you give me a quote on XYZ? My contract's coming up." Because I remember that I just was interested. And I built a relationship over time. I kept going back. And I observed these other reps and I went, "Oh, of course people hate XYZ Telecom Company because there's no relationship there. And of course, if they get a quick hit and they sell that thing at the end of the month, that customer is churning 6 months later because they know the contract's up." So I think that that's an absolutely really poignant answer that you gave, which is take your time building relationships. It's so obvious, but it's so much harder than we give it credit for. And I think that I want to go back to your time when you were sort of, you didn't call it an identity crisis, but you lost some identity of transitioning your career. And there are lots of people who are maybe new in sales or coming from account management or coming from accounting,
Yeah.
for example, or they're coming from a completely different space. And maybe they have lost a little bit of that
Mm.
spark that they have or that identity that they have for themselves. What did you feel in those moments? And how long did that last before you were back on the horse again, so to speak, and moving in
Yeah.
the right direction?
Man, for me, I'm a slow learner, so it probably took me about 6 years to really kinda get over that because that's ultimately where I put my identity in what I did, and I believe everybody probably will have a different process with that, but I think going back to your core competencies is a really helpful thing because, say you lose an account management job, but you're really good at customer retention. Great. So you feel positive about that and you feel good about that. Everybody says follow your passions, but I like the Kevin O'Leary approach, like figure out how to make money and you can do your passions on the side. So I think if people can realize that you're not going to be in a job that will most likely be your passion, but hopefully you're in a job that fits your skill set.
Mm.
So for me, I just had to realize that the same things I did in ministry is the same things that I'm doing in sales. I'm trying to solve a problem. I'm sparking a relationship with a new customer. You have no idea who the hell I am. So why would I expect you to listen to me? But maybe by the fifth or sixth or seventh time that I'm just relational and I'm not feature dumping, but I'm problem solving, most people are willing to listen
Mm.
when you show persistence and problem solving. So I would say the more people that could remember their core competencies and what makes them human, that was life-saving for me. Just realizing this is who I've been made to be. This is how my life has shaped me. So from this point on, I can't affect what has happened, but I can affect what will happen.
You coach, train, consult, and help people become who they need to be in order to create success and bring value. And I want to hear your perspective on how you think your past impacts the way you coach others. What are you telling them? What is typically clicking when you're having these conversations and your students or your consulting groups and they go, "Oh, I've got it." What does that look like for you?
I think it is using that core competency of active listening. As I do consulting for people, they're hiring me to discuss a problem. And my whole job is to ask good questions and shut up. Because when I do, I'm able to hear what's really going on. So I think that core competency is one of those things that not only every human should have, but every sales professional needs. You have to be able to ask good questions in order to uncover what's really there. And you cannot take people at their first answer. Buyers are liars all the time. So you have to be able to, again, slow down, ask some questions, possibly read in between the lines, and come to some conclusions with the caveat of, do you think I'm off here? Because I could be.
Mm.
Because then there's not this pressure of me telling them what to do. The best teachers in the world lead their students, whether they're English, math, whatever it may be, lead their students to a place that they can solve those problems. That's what consultancy is. So the more that I slow down, ask good questions, shut up, read in between the lines, that's been really helpful because ultimately I want good for the person in front of me. I don't care if you're in the same industry as me. I don't care if you're selling just like me. I want good for you because ultimately that's a core belief that I have.
You mentioned relationship building as the quick hit relationship building or the need for that instant gratification, and it's just the culture
Yeah.
that we're in. From your perspective, what else is missing in the sales world? What else it has gone as undervalued, or that you feel maybe lost as an art?
I think salespeople, if I can be super blunt, don't think enough. I think they take what they're being told at face value
Hmm.
and they try to implement it. Where you and I both know, like you run marketing on the sales gravy side, I sell digital marketing services now. Marketing and sales hate each other. And it's because marketing thinks this is the way to do it. And then the boots on the ground, men and women who are out actually doing the job say, this is not how it works. So I think a sales professional needs to have the ability to be flexible and think for themselves because they're in the conversation, they're the one hearing the problems. So that's a skill set that I think is tremendously lacking. And then you have to be able to move away from what your product does. Everybody has a product, whether it's a vacuum cleaner or an accounting software, like everybody has a product and no one gives two shits about your product. No one cares. And I think sales professionals, because you're in it every day, is like, this is the best thing ever. And a lot of people would say, no, it's not. I have other problems to solve. I've got Cliff who came in drunk yesterday for his driving job, and I got to handle him. Like, there's those dynamics that have to be understood. So, if a sales professional can think for themselves and not just regurgitate information,
Mm.
but also understand that people don't care about you, there's just something that builds resilience because it shows that you have the ability to change a situation based upon your behavior. But when you come in with the correct expectations, you don't get disappointed. A mentor of mine a long time ago said, expectations are premeditated disappointments.
Mm.
Anybody who's listening, think about your marriage, think about your boyfriend and girlfriend, think about your kids. There's these unspoken things that you have expectations on people. So if you walk in having the correct expectation that this person is frustrated that you called them, has more important things than to deal with you, all of a sudden the approach changes. It's not about, let me tell you about the great product or service we do. It's about, hey, I know I'm interrupting your day, but I think I might be able to solve this.
I like that your mindset follows where you came from in a pastoral sense, and that you walk in the door and you say, "I'm here for you, not for me. This is this is not a service to myself, but a service to you. I'm here to provide value. I know I have value, and you know, I think it's easier said than done for most people. That
For sure.
you go to a sales team, you say, you know what, you guys just have to think differently. You just got to think that you have value walking in the door, and then you talk about like that's a pie in the sky sort of idea, and then you have this boots on the ground, right? So the reality of what's happening, and you just had a whole conversation about that in the last answer that you gave. But I want to hear more about your tactical and tangible ability to maybe self-talk or put yourself in the right place so that when you do walk in the door, when you actually walk in the door, you're not just saying these things to yourself in the car, but it's coming out of your mouth when you're in front of the person that you're trying to trying to work with.
Yeah. What was the name of the last gal who was on the podcast with the postcards or the
Cynthia
flashcards?
Cynthia Handel.
Yeah, Cynthia had a great dynamic. If you don't practice, you are going to suck. So if you learn how to practice what you're doing before you walk in a door, you've got to be able to get up every day and say, hey, people don't care about me. All good. However, I have value, so I can let stuff slide off my back. But also people are lucky that I'm calling them because I can solve their problem. So there's this dynamic that a sales professional has to walk, that the expectation from outside is I don't care, but the internal drive from inside says I know you don't care, which is why I'm approaching you. So I think it's that practice makes um not practice makes perfect, but practice makes better. I don't know. That's a
Practice makes
terrible saying.
progress.
See, that's better. You could preach that. Practice makes progress. There you go. That's
All right,
good.
I'm taking that one. Booth, take that one down.
Yeah. But you just got to be able to tell yourself that every day. You know, I have a post-it note on my desktop that I called somebody who I never thought I'd get on the phone. And I called them and they picked up. And then when that happened, I'm like, okay, it's game time. I got to be able to do it. And I ended up booking a meeting with their team because I just picked up the phone and called this person. So because of that, I have a sticky note that says, you called so and so, you can call anybody.
Mm.
And so that has been a huge mantra is that you got to take the little wins for yourself. You got to be able to have that realistic perspective of how the world views you, but yet have enough confidence and sometimes even cockiness to know that who the hell cares if they don't like me? That's not my point.
Yeah.
My point is that you don't like me. My point is that I can help you.
Last question for you. You're looking back, start of the career, and you've got all the knowledge that you have now. What are the things you would say to yourself as you're transitioning into your career?
Be patient. Um, Create very low expectations for yourself that this is going to take time. And I think that honestly telling yourself that you can change, but recognizing that change is a slow growth that nobody sees. So giving yourself practical opportunities to really understand where you've been and where you're going, having those realistic set expectations on yourself, massively important. But then setting that trajectory for the future to say, hey, these are the goals that I want to go after. Goals that are written down are 3 times more likely to be followed through with than goals that are just sitting down on your head. So, what are those things that you can write down that would be helpful for you to start making that transition? If you're going from the nonprofit sector like I did into a sales dynamic, you got to know there's different understandings of the job. Like you're going to have quotas and you're going to have KPIs and you're going to have managers breathing down your throat. Where before you're just like, hey, I'm trying to help people. So you have to take that transition into the drive that you have as a sales professional for a second career and know that there's just going to be differences that you have to embrace, that you cannot change. But the only thing that you can control is your attitude and your actions.
Hmm. Steve, incredibly insightful. Thank you so much for your time. Where can people follow you, learn more from you, and get a part of your world?
Yeah, if you can find me on LinkedIn. I think it's at Steve Pyfrom. I'm not cool and hip like all the kids who know all the handles and stuff. But yeah, LinkedIn is where I post a lot of stuff about what I do. My phone number's on there, my email's on there. So anybody who's listening that would just like to have a listening ear on a transitional process, I'd love to be a part of your process because I had people do that on my side. So LinkedIn is probably the best way to get a hold of me. You can also send me an email. I actually answer emails. I actually respond to phone calls. I'm a sales guy, so I actually do that stuff. But yeah, any way I can serve you guys or your listeners, would just love to have the opportunity to walk alongside someone who's been, or who is in a similar shoes that I was in a long time ago.
Awesome. Well, Steve, y'all go follow him. He's wonderful. Really appreciate your time. Great insights here. Thank you so much for being part of the Sales Gravy podcast, and we'll catch you next time.
Hey, I'm doing a happy dance because you watched this video. Make sure that you click like and subscribe so that you never miss one of our amazing sales training videos.